little background. Um, I'm Crystal Alfonsi, and I've got a special guest today, Jennifer Quattrone. So we are at day 31 of our quarantine. If you can see that on the screen there. Uh, we are in Pennsylvania, so we're in a stay-at-home state where in real estate, we're not allowed to show houses. We're not allowed to meet with clients, go to closings and things like that. So just to give a little perspective, because Howard Hanna's in 10 states, and some of our states, they can show houses, which is pretty crazy. And it's tough for the company to kind of come up with, strategy when some people can show houses and some can't. But anyway, that's enough about me. I've got my special guest today is Jennifer Quattrone. She's with Howard Hanna Mortgage Services. And first of all, you are my first guest, and you're the reason for the name Second Cup with Crystal Alfonsi, because on Thursdays when we were in the office, I would always come in with my second cup from either Starbucks or Coffee Tree Roasters or whatever. But since you're not a coffee drinker, I would bring you tea. And I miss doing that.
Yes.
I really miss doing that. So Jennifer, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
So, Howard Hanna Mortgage, I've been a loan officer for 15 years. I was a real estate agent before that. So I've been with Howard Hanna, I think it's 22 years.
Wow.
So long time in the real estate field. And this is completely different than anything I've ever experienced. And I
Right.
think I say that every few years, but here we are. This is really different.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I bet some of the things, we were already sort of doing DocuSign and, electronic stuff. But yeah, I mean, probably never seen anything like this.
Mm-hmm. And my favorite part of the job is meeting with people in person and talking to them and working out their loan. So it's a little bit sad to me that I'm not meeting people in person, but we're having a lot of online applications and talking to people and working through the problems. So it's all working out. But
Well,
I look forward to being in the office and talking to people.
I know, me too. It was so funny. I said the other day that I miss walking through the houses with people and like the sights and sounds and smells, good or bad, like just
Yeah.
even just like laughing with people about things or like kind of seeing them picture everything. I miss that part of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, thanks for the introduction. And I'm glad you mentioned that you were an agent before you started doing mortgages, because I think that's a big reason. It's one of the big reasons why we trust you with our clients. And I think it's why you're so good at what you do, because you've lived this life as a real estate agent. So you've seen this process from start to finish, not just jumping in with the mortgage part of it and not knowing all of the other stuff.
Right.
So I really love that. I love that you have that expertise, from start to finish. And I wanted you to tell a story. Speaking of expertise, I mean, we're going to tell some funny stories. I've got a couple funny stories before we get to some of the, what to do and what not to do's with you. But I wanted you to tell a great story that sort of wraps up the whole reason why I trust you and why I think clients should trust you.
Yeah, so we had an issue. I actually don't even remember exactly what the issue was, but we had to rework a loan, which happens sometimes. Like, things come up in the mortgage industry, in the real estate industry. We get thrown a curveball, we rework things and make it work for the person. So it was a young first time home buyer, and they were very apprehensive about the changes and like, how does this affect everything? And it wasn't, in the end, it looked like a big change, but like when you got right down to it, it was like $7 a month or something like that. And it
Right.
wasn't like a huge change, but like we need to work through it. So we wanted them to come into the office so that we could just sit and discuss it. Not that I wanted them to do something they weren't comfortable with, just that like I wanted to talk and see what their concerns were and see if I had a solution.
Right.
So we start out the conversation. She's like, I was Googling online and going on, websites. And I said, wait, would you diagnose yourself on WebMD? Like, it's the same thing.
Okay, wait, which in her defense, I've done that, but I always end up with cancer. Not to joke about it, but yeah, I mean, come on, we all do it.
We all do.
We're all dying. We look up a symptom on WebMD and we're dying. So yeah, I thought that was a great analogy.
And so that was like, she sort of looked at me and was like, "Oh, you're right." Like, okay, like, let's stop and have this conversation.
Right.
And so once we did, she was like, "Oh yeah, this makes sense." And these are clients for life. Like, I'm still talking to them. We're getting ready for them to buy their next house. So
Yeah.
it all worked out. Like,
Yeah.
but like, we need to put perspective on stuff.
Yeah. And look, that touches on a couple of things. A couple of the things we're going to talk about today, but also you said we had them come into the office and sit down because boy, isn't it so much easier to explain for 15 minutes face to face with a piece of paper in front of us than shooting emails and texts back and forth to each other, and at the same time everybody else is chiming in. So I think even something like this is easier than emails and texts when you're trying to explain something like that, and this could be the future.
Right.
When somebody does have questions, because you can't, not everybody can come into the office,
Right.
And everybody's, once we're all released out into the wild again, we're all going to be busy. But, this is a nice practice for when someone does have that question, and me and you and them can hop on something like this and talk about it.
Well, and that's like one of the benefits of coronavirus. I hate to say, like, there are benefits, but this pushed me into doing this. Like, this is not something that was
you
in
and me
my
both.
wheelbase as a norm. Like, this is not what I do. But I like keep visioning other things, like oh yeah, like I can use this. Like, even when we're back to normal,
Yep.
there's many benefits to this.
I totally agree. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This pushed me off the cliff, and I'm like, yep, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a video every week, or go live every week. And so many of our coworkers have already been doing it. And yeah, I mean, that's a benefit. It's shoving me out there to do it. So I'm so glad that I could have you be my first guest, and we'll see if anyone actually watches. If not, it's nice to talk to you. But so I wanted to tell two quick stories, and they'll sort of lead into what you wanted to talk about and what to do and what not to do. And I think the big theme of this is to be flexible and be prepared. And I think people are getting probably tons and tons of information. They know the basics. You got to get pre-approved. You have to have your credit in order, things like that. But so many people say, "Oh, my friends bought a house. It was a nightmare. Oh, I heard it's awful," or "Oh, I heard it takes so long." And I think there are two ingredients to it not being a nightmare and to being a really great experience, whether it's your first home, your third home, your vacation home, whatever. Being flexible and being prepared. And those two things, will get you through whatever bumps in the road, like we talked about. They come up, and being flexible and being prepared will help. So my first story about being flexible is, when I first started, I was covering for a very experienced agent in the office, and she was out of the country. Howard Hanna has these great rewards trips. So if you have a great year, they will take you on an all expenses paid trip, and they've gone to Italy and Ireland and Florida. You and I have been on a couple of them. We've gone to Naples, we've gone to Cancun. It's fantastic. So this other agent in the office, she was out of the country on one of these trips, and she asked me to cover for her, and that was fine. I knew her neighborhood, I knew her area. She said, "This is going to be so easy. All you have to do is do a final walkthrough at a house and then go to the closing." Fine. So for those of you who don't know, the day before, the day of your closing, you do a final walkthrough, you go to the house, you make sure everything looks the way it's supposed to, and then you go to the closing. So we're in Green Tree. We walk into this house and it's a split entry. So it's one of those houses where you walk up the steps and the living room is sort of on eye level when you walk in and walk up these steps. And we turned and looked, and there was glass everywhere. A dead bird laying in the living room floor. A bird had crashed through the front picture window. And I just froze. I didn't even know what to do. And I turned and I looked at these clients who are not my clients. They just sort of just met me. But we figured it out. They were flexible. They said, look, clearly this isn't anything anyone did on purpose or expected. So we figured it out. The seller quickly got an estimate for a new window, paid for it in advance, got it scheduled, got the window boarded up, and it was fine because those people were flexible. They didn't look at it and flip out and decide not to buy the house or anything. So anything can happen. You need to be flexible. But we
had
other
one like that too recently, where the people did the walkthrough, and it was an old man, and he hadn't moved anything out of the house.
Oh, he didn't
And
understand that he needed to get everything out.
I don't know. He thought he had more time. I think he thought he closed and then moved later. I don't know what he thought, but
Which I think in some states they do that.
yeah, maybe. So
Yeah.
we went with the buyer. We were trying to figure out what to do, and we were like, maybe we get moving, like junk men or something, and
Yeah.
a moving company, and it ended up the agents and like multiple agents all just decided to pitch in and help this man move, which
Yeah.
was the kindest thing. It's like, we're all in this together. We'll all help you through this. Like,
Yep.
it was just a good story that it takes a village, like, but we're all there together. That's a wonderful thing about Howard Hanna.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Like, yeah, nobody digs in. Everybody's just, everybody's trying to get the buyer into their dream home or the seller to their next chapter.
Right.
So yeah, for sure. And my other favorite story, it's not really like a story, but it's just probably one of my favorite clients that you and I had together. And it's a family who had 6 little ones, all under the age of 9, I think.
Oh, it might have even been 7.
It might have even been 7. They were so young and they were so sweet, and foster kids and adopted kids, and they were in the process of adopting all of them. So 6 little ones, and they were selling a house and buying a house at the same time. Talk about having to be prepared. And I mean, they were prepared for everything, and they ended up with curveballs thrown at them, and they were flexible. So that was a classic example of both being prepared and being flexible.
Yeah, and they were so super flexible. Like, whatever I asked of them, we did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the point. Like, I'm on your team. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to work through it to make it work. I'm not asking you for stuff because I want to be a jerk.
Right.
Or,
No.
I find joy in being annoying. No, like, the underwriters ask for stuff. We try to find solutions to get that stuff to them and make it work. So
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I mean, you want to get them in their home, and that's, they had the end result in their sights the whole time, and that was a great big gigantic house for all these little ones, so that
yeah,
they could spread out, so that they could start, sort of picking out their rooms and everything. And so when they had that on the in their sights the whole time, everything that came up was like, this is another step getting us there, getting us to that point. That's so important, because you can get so caught up and frustrated in like this thing that someone's asking you for today, and you're frustrated about it, but you're forgetting that like the end goal is to get the loan, to get the house, to get the keys.
yeah, that's it.
And I think they, even to the point where the night before, you were talking about the gentleman that didn't know that he had to move out before the closing. And that's tough. I mean, they have to move out, have their house empty, but they can't put their stuff into the new house because that's not empty and closed yet. And that family we were talking about with the 6 little ones, I think the kids and they all stayed at grandma and grandpa's and slept on the floor and in sleeping bags, and they kind of camped out for one night. They knew they were going to have to do it, and they made lemonade out of lemons every step of the way, and they couldn't be happier.
Right.
So I think that just illustrates, you know, you can have every, you know, yes, a good interest rate's important, and good programs and everything else, but the fact of the matter is you got to be flexible and prepared. And if you are those two things, it's going to be easy. We're going to walk you through every step of it and get you to, you know, get you to the goal line, end zone, whatever. Sports, I can't remember sports. Home plate. Remember sports? I
I
don't know.
do.
So I wanted to ask you about a couple of things. One, you touched on it a little bit. What's going to be different moving forward? What, you know, what's different now? What's going to be
Mhm.
different moving forward?
Yeah. So I'm so proud of like our team, our closing team, because really, I think anyone getting a mortgage from us right now is just like, well, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe you guys are pulling this off with everything going on. Our closing company are doing closings in the car. So I don't think that'll stick around.
Closings in the car.
Yeah,
That that's amazing.
it is amazing.
Yeah,
So
let's not
those
have that stick around.
No, I hope that doesn't stick around. But I did make that comment to my closing officer the other day, though. I said, "Are we going to still offer drive-by closings when we open back up?" Or no, I don't think so.
No. Mm-mm. No, don't think
But
so.
um, so things are moving relatively smoothly. We are getting curveballs thrown at us, like maybe appraisers can't go into the properties, now and stuff. So, but we're working through it on a case by case basis. So I'm not going to tell anybody, yes, you most certainly can get a mortgage, and no, that you can't get a mortgage.
Yeah.
And when we come out of this, the mortgage industry might change a little bit again. Like it might be tightened up for a little bit. Um, you know, Lenders may be more strict for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But we've worked through that before. Like I think 10 years ago when we had, the other, which was mortgage breakdown, was a housing crisis,
Right.
which this is not. So
No.
it's hard to imagine what things are going to be like, but I think they'll be good.
That's
I
good.
think it'll be back, to normal.
Yeah. Yeah. We both remember that. We both lived through that. And that was, it was impossible to get a mortgage. And it was, we had tons and tons of listings on the market. We were desperate for buyers because we couldn't get buyers. That part of it, I don't think is going to happen.
Yeah.
People upside down in their mortgages and short sales and things. That was rough. And that part of it, I think you're right. I don't think we're going to have that. But I mean, are we going to have some people in a tough spot because maybe they were laid off for a few months or furloughed for a few months?
I mean, that could happen. Assuming that they go back to the same employer, same, we should be fine. But there's going to be like, some mortgage companies may require more down payment. Like there may be stricter credit scores, only because I think they're going to want to make sure that we have strong buyers right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, moving forward. And then as it goes and that all works out fine, it's going to keep lessening and lessening. And, hopefully quickly we're back to normal. But I think for short term, we're going to have a little bit restrictions.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. I mean, I guess it would be hard to really be hard to penalize anybody whose income went down in the months of March and April, and who knows, hopefully just March and April, but March, April, May, whatever it's going to be, when an entire country went down in March and
And
April.
right, and that's not going to happen. The things that are going to happen are like we, we're not in a business like sometimes people think we're just tough. I don't know why they think we're like this, but um, I sort of get pushback. But then I think to myself, my job is to make sure that you buy a house that you can afford, and not just afford next month, but afford 2 years from now. Like, we don't want to put you in a bad place. So we don't
Yeah.
want to push you to overbuy or underbuy. Like, my job is to support you through the process and get you into a house that's reasonable. And like I said, so like I may say to some people, this is not a good time for you to buy. Like, let's
Hmm.
6 months, get your savings built back up, do a couple things. Like, let's get you back on track, and then you'll be ready to buy with confidence.
Yeah. Don't you think that might be kind of a leftover from 2008, where people are skeptical and thinking that lenders are trying to get them to over borrow? Because that
Right.
happened.
It
I mean,
happens.
it
There's some
totally
loan
didn't.
officers out there. Like, sometimes I look at people's pre-approvals and I think, oh, like, like, yeah, I guess you could do that, but why?
But why would you? Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
do you plan on eating
Mm,
or
yeah.
going out ever?
Yeah. You do want to take the family on vacation next year, right? Like, I, I don't
I mean,
know.
it's a nice house, but you still want to go on vacation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's a holdover from then,
mhm.
because people were really skeptical and you're probably one of the more conservative mortgage originators out there. When you give someone a pre-approval, I can't tell you how many times people will say, "Oh my God, she said we're pre-approved for X amount, and we never thought that." And I tell them, I say, and that's probably the lower end.
Yeah,
I mean,
it probably is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you always say, you put your mom hat on sometimes with
Yeah.
buyers.
I was thinking that I was gonna say that. I'm like, sometimes I have to stop myself. I'm like, are you being a loan officer or a mom? Because like especially if the young kids, I'm like, ooh,
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't go that high.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's it. We do it. We still have to do a lot of that. We still have to do a lot of reassuring people that this isn't going to put you in a bad situation. We're not in the business of that. Never, never were, never
no,
will be.
no, that's not.
Um, no.
I want you to be a client for life, not
Well,
once
that's
and then I'll talk to you never again.
yeah. Well, that's true. And you mentioned that with the WebMD couple, so to
Yeah,
speak. How so they bought their first home, and now they're going to talk to you about buying their next one, and then they're on and on and on. That's our goal. We
yes,
want to take care of people because our company's been around since 1957, so we're not going anywhere. We want to continue to take care of people.
yeah.
So it's
And my
so
favorite thing is like I do like a loan for our parents and then both kids and then
yeah, yeah,
like yeah,
brothers,
family
sisters.
generations. Those are
Oh
my
yeah,
favorite clients.
me too. Yeah, I have clients now where their two daughters both bought houses with us, and then now the parents are selling their house and downsizing, and they're like, "You're the family real estate agent."
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about were some of the like less obvious what to do or mainly what not to do
Hmm.
when you're getting ready to buy and then when you're in that process. So
Right.
talk a little bit about that.
So, like, and some things people are going to be like, well, that's obvious, but these things happen. So, like, I like to bring them up.
Yeah.
Um, so changing jobs, like you can't change from one job field to another. Like you can't be a school teacher and decide I really don't like kids anymore. I'm going to go become a casino dealer. Um,
Right.
that is a complete job change. So then you would need like 2 years as a casino dealer. So like, but if you were a secretary somewhere and you moved to be a secretary somewhere else, then that continues. And so it has to make sense. A lot of that is common sense. But so then sometimes I have one comes to mind that was just recent. Um, a, a gentleman, he worked for a company, he got a promotion, like he moved to another company, but he was being paid as a contract employee for the first 6 months.
Mm.
Well, that contract employee is like a short term. And yes, do I logically think he will stay on that job? Yes, I do. But the company hires people like that because they want to try them out for 6 months. If they don't work, they're easy
Oh.
to replace. And so
Oh.
it's like like engineers, testing, those kind of things, that happens. So you have to look at your employment. So if you're changing, so if I've pre-approved you and then you're changing employment, give me a call first. Let's find out if, like, okay, yeah, that job change is not going to be a problem and you'll be fine. Or wait a second, we have to rethink this. Like, let's adjust your pre-approval. Let's see what we can do. Because you don't want to get into a situation where you make an offer on a house and pay for home inspections, and then I realize, like, wait a second, this job has changed and it's not the same. Like, we have an issue.
Yeah.
Um,
That, yeah, I guess because, just if I was just thinking of it as a buyer, I'm thinking, okay, I'm making pretty much the same amount of money. What difference does it
what
make? And
difference?
it makes a big difference.
Yeah. So and once again, it may not make a difference, but let's have that conversation. Um,
Right.
the other thing is like, protect your credit. So like, this is not the time to go buy the new car, not the time to buy, the boat or the engagement ring. Engagement
Oh,
rings have
that's
gotten me. Uh,
you know what's so funny, and we laugh about it, but these are life stages, and so yeah, I mean, I've had sorry to interrupt, but like
no.
a cutest story was and again, it was a couple that we were working with. The guy, they were buying a house, and his whole plan was to have a bottle of champagne at the final walkthrough and the closing, go into the house and ask her to marry him, which was fantastic. But when you're going through these life stages, yeah, you're thinking about buying an engagement ring or buying furniture. So
Right. Right. So you want to protect that credit. You don't want to max out any credit cards. You don't want to open anything new. You don't want to make any of those big purchases. So really do that. Now, once again, I've had situations where, it's not 8 o'clock at night and someone's calling me saying, there's a really big sale on furniture. I need to buy it. And I'm on my Bluetooth go, no, no, you don't need to buy it. There'll be a sale next week.
there'll
Let's
be a sale
close
next
and then
week.
you can buy it. And my husband's like, you're mean. And I'm like, I'm not mean. I want them to buy their house. They don't want furniture and live and put it on the street. Like,
Right, right.
like it's important. And they're like, well, there's no payment for 6 months. I don't care. It's still credit. Like,
Yeah,
don't do that.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
so like, yeah, so very much protect your credit. And then here's another thing that, like, and people are always like, oh, you can't tell me what to do, or it's my money, I can do it. So your bank accounts are going to be looked at, and let's just assume 3 months. It's probably going to be 2 months, but just assume 3 months. Your bank accounts are going to be looked at, and what they're looking for are, do you pay something out of your bank account that's not showing up in your credit report? You may get asked. So if you two things happen with that. So you may be making a payment for maybe your parents. Maybe you make their credit card payment. Um, so the underwriter is going to say, you make a $200 a month payment every month to Chase, but it's not on your credit. What is this? And you may have to supply the statement showing that, like, it's not my obligation. I'm just nice and make the payment.
Oh,
Sometimes things show up and they are yours, but they don't show up in your credit report. Maybe there's a credit union, a real small credit union, and they don't report to the credit reporting agency for whatever reason. But you're making a $300 card payment to them.
oh,
And then when we get the statement, and then it'll show that it's in your name, then we do have to add that to your debt to income. So we're going to be looking at your statement. So, like, look at that, compare that, see, is there anything that's different or not showing? And then, so that's outgoing. And then any large deposit. Um, so a general rule of thumb is 1% of the sales price. So if you're buying a $200,000 house, any deposit over $2,000, you're going to have to document. So if you're a waitress and you've been saving all your tips in cash, at home, and then you think, okay, now I'm going to deposit those because we want to buy the house. Well, that's going to be a
Oh,
problem because you're not going to be able to source that deposit. And then the person's going to be like, but those were my tips. Like I saved them. They're my money.
right.
Got to get them into the bank before that cash into the bank before, like I said, look at that 3 months and then do that. If
Yeah.
you're going to get a gift from your parents, they may have to supply their bank statement and a gift letter. So know that it's going to need to be documented. If you're
Hmm.
getting a bonus from a company, it'll have to be documented. Um, so just know that, like any large deposit, you're going to have a paper trail. And so you might want to hold on to those. That's really important.
And it's not that you're again, it's not that you're trying to throw a roadblock up or accuse anybody of doing anything shady either. It's all protection to make sure, because there were so many predatory lending practices happening in the past, they want to make sure that there's not anything predatory happening now,
Yes,
right?
that's it. And then, um, and very few people do things illegally,
Right.
um, but that affects everybody,
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so you have that person that actually gets a loan instead of a gift, and
Mhm.
then says it's a gift, but it actually is a loan. Um, so then we have to document everything to make sure that this is a legit gift, and
Yeah.
that's the way it's going to be.
What happens when couples get married and they get a lot of cash as gifts at
Uh-huh.
their wedding?
Yeah, that's a great question because that comes up quite often. So
Yeah.
typically what we do is get their marriage certificate, and we
Oh,
get like an invitation to a reception or something like that. And then and we show that it was deposit cash and checks, and it's reasonable.
yeah.
You know, we
Okay.
had one time though, the person got married in like June. I'm going to say June. And then they didn't deposit all the money till November. And the underwriter's like,
Mm,
why? Like, why?
yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And it made sense to them, but it became an underwriting issue. So, like,
Right.
typically people deposit it, within the month of getting married. So,
Right. Or at least having the reception. Some
yeah.
folks get married and then have a
Mhm.
reception later.
Exactly. And you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to have a reception, but that helps. Do you know what I mean? Like, because
Sure.
people don't have, people
Yeah.
get married
Everyone does everything different
different.
now.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
all.
Oh, that's
So,
good. Um,
yeah.
that's great. Well, listen, we've been chatting for half an hour now,
Yep.
and I so appreciate it. Hang on one second. I just want to pop some information here on the screen. So there's Jennifer's email address and mobile number, and Jennifer's available just like all of us real estate agents are, all the time. So it's
Yes.
not banker's hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. It's weekends, evenings, anytime. So, um, Jennifer, tell folks what you can do: pre approvals, estimates, just questions.
Yeah. So I'm available all the time, like she said. Pre-approvals usually be done on a phone conversation. It takes like 5 minutes. I'm glad to answer any of your questions. So sometimes people just have questions first, then they want to think about it, then we get a pre-approval, and then cost sheets. I do tons and tons of cost sheets for you. Um, give you different scenarios and different houses so that find a price point and payment that's great for you. So I'm glad to do any of that. I think it's really important right now to get pre-approved because either we're going to be like, okay, so this is what we need to do. You need to be back to work and you're ready to go, or you're ready to go now. We just need to, get the stay at home removed.
Yeah.
Whatever the situation. But the, the, I'm predicting that the market is going to be very busy right out the gate.
Yeah.
And so it was very competitive before this happened, and I think it's going to be even more so competitive after. So I
Yeah.
think you just want to be ready, to make the move.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a great point is to work on this stuff now when you really don't have anything else to do.
Mhm.
Um, because then you'll be ready.
Yeah.
And if there is something that you have to fix, or if you're the type of person that wants to have time to think about it, time to absorb all of that information, if you want to be that person that's prepared, like we talked about, prepared and flexible, now's a great time to take that time instead of when you're standing in a house and freaking out because it's the dream house and there are 7 other people looking at it.
So a side note to that, I want you to get pre-approved and be ready. But Saturday night, you're in the dream house. You can still call me to get pre-approved.
Yeah,
I'll get it done so you
absolutely.
can make the offer.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Well, thank you so much. I
All right.
miss bringing you your tea. I really do. I
So
do.
I can't wait till we can have a tea.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, we'll do it again sometime. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay.
All
Thanks. Have a
right.
great day.
You
Okay.
too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.